Boomers broke the American dream, and then they called us lazy. If you think younger people are lazy, try buying a house today with the same conditions that you had when you were growing up the job. The same income, same cost ratios, same opportunity. Yeah, you just can't because the game has changed. Boomers didn't just break the American dream, they kept teaching it after it stopped working. The American dream didn't just die because people stopped working hard. It broke because the system totally changed. And the people who benefited from the old version refused to admit it. Nobody that's older wants to talk about this because every generation wants to believe that they earned everything simply by character alone. They want to believe that they were tougher, that they're the toughest generation, that they're the smartest, they're the most disciplined, they're more responsible. But sometimes people aren't successful just because they're better. Sometimes, and most of the time, they were just born into better conditions. You just had a better spawn point. And that's where this whole generational argument starts, you know, because younger people are not angry for no reason. We're angry because we were handed a story that no longer matches a reality. We were told go to school, work hard, be loyal to the system, buy a house, start a family, and everything will just work out, bro. Just work harder. Then we started stepping into the real world and realized this math just doesn't math anymore. It doesn't work. The wages don't match the cost of living. The house, doesn't match the paycheck. The degree doesn't guarantee anything anymore, at least of all stability. The job doesn't guarantee loyalty. The system just doesn't reward effort the way older people claim it does. And instead of admitting this, a lot of older people just they go to the default. You're lazy. You're entitled. You don't want to work. You're just lazy, bro. No, that is farthest thing from the truth. That is actual denial. You are delusional. Boomers broke the American dream. Period. End of story. And then they called us lazy for not being able to live inside it. And I know some people are going to hear this and get super defensive. They'll say, "Oh, we struggled too." Yeah, I get that. Every generation struggles at some point. Nobody gets through this prison planet life without pain. I'm not saying that older generations had perfect lives. I'm not saying every boomer had it easy. That would be actually stupid to say. But there's a difference between personal struggle and a collapsing economic structure. There's a difference between I had to work hard and the entire ladder is harder to climb now, so we're going to remove the ladder from you. Uh, the boomers grew up in a world where one income could actually do something, and you see it right now. They're not even going to give up their jobs. They're not going to give up their houses. They want it to collapse. They're ready for the downfall. A regular job in the past could support an entire household. College wasn't a lifelong debt and death trap. Housing wasn't completely out of reach. Healthcare didn't completely destroy people and families the way it does now. Like, people actually do horrible things. They check out because of the healthcare system, which is supposed to be the one thing that saves them. You could make mistakes and still recover in the past. You could work a normal job and see some type of path forward. And that doesn't mean that life was perfect, but that path did exist in the past. And now, it sure as heck doesn't. A lot of people are doing everything that they were told to do. Go to college, get a job, do a family. It just doesn't work. The math doesn't math. And these people are barely staying afloat. This is not laziness. This is not weakness. This is a broken promise. And what makes people angry isn't just that the promise was broken, it's that the people who benefited from that very promise turned around and blamed everyone else when it disappeared, when they're the ones that made it disappear. That is the part that is actual gaslighting. It doesn't just feel like gaslighting, it is the definition of gaslighting. Because they will say, well, I bought my first house when I was 20 years old. Okay, and what did it cost you? What was your income? What was the interest rate? What was the debt load? What was the cost of food? What was the cost of insurance? What was the cost of your education? You cannot compare outcomes without comparing the conditions that they were in. That's where the lie starts. The lie begins right there. Because people compare where they ended up without admitting the world that they started in was completely different. And this is the part that makes people really, really damn uncomfortable. Some people didn't win because they were morally superior, you know? They won because they were standing in the right place at the right time. You know, you had rich parents. Admit it. You did. They had cheaper housing. You had more stable jobs. You were the right color, you know? You had lower education costs. You had stronger labor protections. You had a clearer path and an easier path, a stronger belief that tomorrow would be better than today. It's easy to believe that the system works because for you, it did. So when someone younger says, hey, this system is really messed up, it's not working for you anymore, these people don't want to hear a warning. They don't hear a warning. They hear an attack on their, personally. Because if the system is broken now, then maybe their success wasn't just hard work. Maybe it was timing too. Maybe it was just luck. Maybe it was your spawn point. Maybe you aren't as smart and as good as you think you are. Maybe it was just a system that favored these people in a way they don't want to admit. And that threatens their personal identity. So instead of looking at reality, they protect the story. They protect the narrative. They protect the version of themselves that says, oh, I earned everything, bro. Just work harder. Work like me when these people are golfing all day long. They're a CEO that hasn't worked in 15 years or 30 years, or if all at all in their life, and they're just getting money off the working class. And they'll say, oh, if you don't have what I have, you must not be trying hard enough. This is where the disconnect comes from. It's not just about money, it's about their identity. Because if someone spent their whole life believing the system rewards effort, then admitting that the system is broken feels like admitting their whole worldview is just incomplete, incompatible. So they don't admit it. They just blame the people struggling underneath them. They say younger people are soft, They say younger people don't want to work, They say younger people complain too damn much. But maybe these younger people aren't lazy. Maybe they're just awake to a game where the rules changed. And these other people don't want to admit it. The American dream used to mean something very simple. Work hard, build something, own a home, raise a family, leave something better behind. This was the idea. But somehow along the way, the dream turned into a weapon. It was weaponized. Now it gets used to shame you. If you can't afford a house, you are a failure. If you don't have kids, you failed. If you're anxious, you're weak. If you're burned out, you're soft. If you question the system at all, you're ungrateful. This is not wisdom. This is manipulation. Because the American dream only works as advice if the conditions that created the American dream still exist, which they do not. You can't tell people to play by the old rules when the board has completely changed. That's like handing somebody a map, of America in the 1900s, then mocking them when they can't find the road anymore. The road moved, okay? The prices changed. The jobs changed. The entire culture changed. The family culture changed. The structure changed. Every single thing has changed. But some people are still giving this damn advice from a world that doesn't even exist anymore. And then they get offended when younger people stop listening. That's where the whole, okay boomer thing, this is what it really meant. It wasn't just, a meme. People think it was just some type of internet insult, but it's much deeper than that. It is sheer mental exhaustion with these people. It was younger people trying to say, we tried explaining this to you. We tried showing you the numbers. We tried telling you the system is different now. And you still called us lazy. You didn't help. You removed the ladder. So eventually, people stopped arguing. They stopped trying to convince them. They stopped looking for understanding from people who didn't want to understand. They disengage. And this is dangerous. Disengagement is the most dangerous thing. Because when younger generations stop trusting older generations, the entire bridge collapses. And when the bridge breaks, wisdom doesn't transfer. Only resentment does. Uh, Let me be clear on this part. It's not about hating every older person by any means. That's lazy. That's a lazy mentality. It's very shallow mentality. There are good people in every generation. There are selfish people in every generation. There are boomers who see exactly what is actually happening. They see it. And there are older people who sacrificed, listened, helped, and actually cared about what came next. So this isn't about attacking every individual. Don't get this twisted. This is about a pattern. This is pattern recognition. This is a mindset. This is the system. The mindset that says, I got mine, you better figure it out on your own. And if we are all not careful, we will become the same thing that as the older generations. That is another part that most people don't want to come to terms with. Because every generation, every single one thinks they're different. We all think we're different. We think that we're the only ones that see things clearly. But if millennials or Gen Z finally get power, and then they protect their own comfort while mocking the people under us, like Generation Alpha, then we're just going to become what we hate, what we hated. This is the real battle, not boomer versus millennial, not old versus young. The real battle is whether we break the cycle or repeat it once we finally get our turn, whenever the hell that'll be. Because trauma does this. Broken systems do this. Cycles repeat. People who were hurt can become people who hurt others. People who were ignored can become people who ignore others. People who, did the blaming, or no, people who were blamed can become people who blame the next generation. This is how the cycle survives. Not because everyone is evil, manipulates, because nobody stops long enough to say, this ends with me. And this is also where the system wins. Because the system benefits when generations fight each other. Older people blame younger people. Younger people blame older people. Everyone gets bitter. Everyone argues. Everyone picks a side. Meanwhile, the actual machine keeps moving. It's the whole divide and conquer strategy. The cost of living keeps rising. Housing gets more impossible. Healthcare keeps breaking people. Debt keeps trapping people. You become a slave to the system. Work keeps demanding more and more and more of you while giving less and less back. And we sit here just taking it in. We're like, yes, sir, I'll work harder, while we're fighting each other instead of looking at the damn machine that's, doing this to us. That's why the generational battles become pointless when it stays surface level. Because if all we do, is say boomers suck or young people are lazy, nothing changes. This is just background noise. This is just the system repeating itself as noise. The deeper question that we must ask is who benefits from keeping everyone exhausted, divided, and blaming each other? Who benefits when young people lose hope? Who benefits when older people cling to power out of fear? Who benefits when nobody trusts anyone? That's the system. That's the pattern. And once you see it, you stop falling for the surface level fight. Breaking the cycle doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It doesn't mean forgiving people who refuse to take accountability for their actions. It doesn't mean accepting respect by any means. It means seeing clearly. It means telling the truth without letting bitterness become your whole identity. It means saying, yes, the American dream was broken. Yes, younger generations were gaslit. Yes, older generations benefited from conditions that no longer exist. But also, no, I'm not going to spend my life waiting for them to admit it, because they're not going to. No, I'm not going to become what hurt me. This helps no one. No, I'm not going to pass this same emptiness forward. This destroys people. Not the system. It destroys the people in it. This is the difference. Because resentment can wake you up. but it cannot lead your whole life. At some point, awareness has to become actual action. You build differently, you think differently, you stop worshiping false idols and broken systems. You stop chasing approval. You stop, living by the rise and grind mentality that's never going to do a damn thing for you. You stop chasing approval from people who don't understand your reality. You stop waiting for permission. You start asking better questions, and you start, you know, the better questions that you ask. What kind of life makes sense now for me, not for these delusional people. What do I value? You know, if the old dream is gone, what kind of future can we build that isn't based on debt, exhaustion, status, and pretending? That's where the real work starts. The American dream is broken. It is. Not because people stopped trying, not because young people got weak, not because everyone suddenly magically became lazy. It's because the conditions changed rapidly. And too many people refuse to admit it. They pulled the ladder out from underneath us. They blamed everyone underneath for not being able to comply to be able to climb that invisible ladder that has been removed by them. But staying angry forever at this doesn't, rebuild the ladder or put a new ladder back in place. It just keeps you from. It just keeps you staring at the people who broke it, and that's part of the trap. At some point, you have to see the pattern, name it, learn from it, and refuse to repeat it, because history doesn't care how you were hurt. It cares what you did with that hurt. And if we all become the same selfish, disconnected, delusional, comfort protected people that we criticize, then we won't change anything and we won't break anything. That would just be us waiting for our turn. And this is the real generational battle. Not proving. I said this. I spoke about this in a previous video. Suffering it's not a competition. Suffering is unnecessary. Suffering does not build character. It gives you pain. Suffering is a construct of the prison planet that we live in, and you're not supposed to be proving who suffered more. This is not the story of Job, and if it is, and if you believe that that's a good thing, you're delusional as well, because that's just a form of slavery, mental slavery. We can't argue amongst ourselves forever. We have to break the cycle. We need to start seeing the system clearly for what it is, and we must refuse to let this system turn us into the exact same thing that we hate. Don't let these people manipulate you.